I just thought that going into the race, we were likely going to see 2x2 racing. And surprisingly, and we saw 3-wide racing, right, for the bulk of the event. And so I tried to, you try to think about, okay, why is it different now than what it was before? And I think the main reason was because the field was saving gas. So these you know what, there's a correlation. The Superspeedway races that are now playing themselves out like road courses, where we are trying to, it's essentially a fuel mileage race because we want to be on pit road the least amount that we possibly can. To do that, we are saving gas. We're saving gas while we're racing. So if you're not leading the race and you're anywhere from the second to the 12th car in line, you think that we're all out there holding the gas wide open. And we used to do that. We used to all run wide open, and whoever manipulated the air the best was the person that was out front. Now it's a little bit different, and we want to be on pit road as least amount as we possibly can. In order to do that, you can save fuel, and then you can take less fuel when you do come in and pit. That leapfrog you up front, bam, you've got your track position. And while we're saying track position means so much is because it is harder to pass. There's a log jam of cars, 2x2x2x2. So you normally, if you're the 5th car on the inside line, you're going to run 9th for a while until a lane gets jumbled up or somebody makes a move from one lane to another. That's pretty much where you're going to be. Where in Gen 6, if you had a run, you know what you do? You just go to middle. Because you would be able to overtake the car that's in front of you. Maybe you get back in line. Maybe you start a third line through the middle. So it's a little different in that aspect. So why the top line was working so well on Sunday is that fuel mileage. It was cars that were on the first 2 lanes were saving gas. So the third lane was able to form because they were running wide open, trying to get to the front. And others were just half-ass driving, half-ass racing. So
that's
they weren't.
Why late in this race, I can't remember how many laps to go, but you and your crew chief had something over the radio. Were like, "Hey, it's going to be more difficult to get to the front now because of that." Mm-hmm. Right? Wasn't there some conversation about that? Yes,
yeah, there was, and so I honestly believe that that's why we've had less wrecks in next gen on super speedways. If you look, like when I got trapped a lap down, I'm thinking, holy man, my race is over again. Like, because this happened at Daytona in the last regular season race. There was no cautions.
Right, yeah.
Because everyone's saving gas. So there's no one wants to push the person in front. Where are you going to go, first of all, A, and B, it's just a race to save gas. So that's why we haven't seen the wrecks that we've seen before, is because everyone's in fuel save mode. And when you're in fuel save mode, you are not trying to push the limits at all. So that's why there's been less cautions, less attrition, and why this time the third lane worked is because there was people in the back saying, the fuel mileage right now, I got to get my way to the front. And that's why it formed. And it made for what looked like great racing on TV for most of the race.
Right. Well, I think it was 82% people, and Jeff Gluck's was a good race poll.
That's a fair,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a fair number. I thought it was certainly one of the best next gen races that we had. I think it probably deserved a higher than 82%. Honestly, I don't know what's good for a super speedway.
So you're okay.
They're never in the 90s, right? I mean, just because some people don't like speedways for whatever reason.
So you agree this was a good super
speedway
race?
I did. I thought it was a good race. I thought, you could make moves, and a lot of times that you made moves, it was just more of others making moves, and you either decide, do I want to follow that or do I not? And so you had some options there to move up in the third line or stay in the middle. So I did think that you could make, some moves that you didn't in races past. Is Coke Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? I know that's a bold question, but it's got that irresistible taste to back it up. Well, when you've got an irresistible match like zero sugar and 0 calories, something sensational is bound to happen. It's like when me and my co-host Jared team up to make a podcast. It's too bad you can't taste with your ears because Coke Zero Sugar tastes so amazing, it's hard to put it into words. But hey, that's my job, at least on Mondays. You have to taste it for yourself. Coke Zero Sugar, the best Coke ever.
We've got a lot of talking points in this race on our note here, and I'm really not sure where we should start. We should start with Ross Chastain and Kyle
Hold
Busch.
on, let's start with, I got a question. That third line, Denny, at the beginning, you made, it was coming up, and you made a point, and you left the second lane and went out to that third lane. What was your reasoning behind it, and did it work for you?
This was when the Toyotas were getting together.
It was like 47 laps in or something like that. I forget.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that it did work. Which was what was interesting about it for sure is that I was at the tail end of that, and actually the Toyotas. If you look post race, I made some comments about alliances, and man, I just feel like I made a lot of moves that in the race that I knew wasn't right because I was trying to just stick with whoever the Toyota was in front of me. So when you agree to that type of stuff, it's Denny Hamlin isn't allowed to trust his instincts and make the moves or hit the holes that I think is correct, right? I'm really reliant on whoever that top Toyota is to make the moves, and I'm just gonna follow him through the pack.
Right.
And so it did work early on for sure. I was at the tail end. I think it was Martin Truex and maybe Seabell or whoever. They actually got all the way to the front, and everybody was clear except for me. And I guess they were trying to see if I was going to get clear, and they didn't. And they ended up going all the way back to the back because they didn't take the hole that they should have, which is you guys should have just hung me out and left me to dry back there because, we had worked so hard to get to the front. Like, you got to take it. I certainly think that they were trying to be almost too good of teammates there and making sure that I was able to get clear also. And they're just eventually time catches up. The middle line's like, no, that we're not gonna let you guys come up here and just take over our line. And they started picking up the pace and cut that runoff. So I just think that it's very difficult for me personally because I do feel strong on super speedways to essentially kind of put the handcuffs on you or tie your shoelaces together and say, all right, go run. Like, I can't because I've got to stick with this person, that person. It's very difficult when you don't have numbers too. And then at the end of the race, we had the 54 was out of the race. We had the 20 with damage. So I'm like, man, we only have so many cars anyway. And like at some point, I'm like, this isn't working. I've got to just go. And when I was able to go all the way towards the front. But, it's just one of those things where, what's the right thing to do? It's tough to say.
Yeah. Bubba had said something similar in his post-race comments that he was all for working with teammates and whatnot, but he felt like at times that it wasn't necessarily in the best interest of everybody.
Yeah. And he actually said, like kind of when we were all talking, he's like, man, I thought this was the best move for me to make at the end of the race, and it ended up screwing up Tyler and maybe somebody else. He's like, because it wasn't the right move, and they were all trying to stick with me. He's like, but it just wasn't the right move, and it cost a good finish for all of us. So, where if you had everyone able to just kind of make their own decisions, like I made my own decision. I said, this isn't going to work. I'm going to just stay here. And we ended up getting a good finish out of it. Now, but that wasn't the plan, right? I altered from that plan because I had to be selfish in that moment and say, I'm trying to lock myself into the next round here. I'm not trying to with the Roval. So, I just had audible during the race. So, that's interesting how that all played out, but I did think it was a good race.